Hi, my name's Mike Bennie. I'm co-owner of P&V Wine and Liquor Merchants, and I welcome you into this space to learn a little bit about food and drink matching.
Rolling, set, action.
So today we're going to be working with Leila Khazma, who is our chef here at P&V Paddington. And I'm going to be talking through some concepts about drink matching. For me, one of the things that I like doing is challenging perceptions of what actually a food and wine or food and drink matching looks like. Some of those norms that you would have heard of, white drinks matching white food, red drinks matching red food, do hold water at times. But for me, I think one of the most exciting things is looking at a beverage as a way of resetting your palate. I think with varied cuts of beef, it's really important to think broadly and more diversely than you commonly would. I think the idea that red wine going with a beef dish tends to get a little bit boring. And for me, the idea is that you want that thing in the glass to be able to actually either complement, say, the sweetness and richness and fattiness, but also provide a little bit of extra backdrop for your palate to feel cleansed after each mouthful. I'm actually looking for wines that have a lot of herbs, a lot of spice characters. I'm looking for peppery elements. I'm looking for things that you'd actually find in the kitchen, but actually found within the wine itself. And then if I'm not using red wine, well, I like things that are just generally refreshing and exciting to drink. So I'm reaching for things like rosé, beer. But that doesn't mean you're going for the simple styles of beer. Indeed, wild ferment beer or sour beers or beers that have a bit more dimension in terms of their flavor profile. I really like putting super salty, really refreshing sherry alongside beef dishes. Beyond this, I sometimes use spirits as well. So things like whiskey and bourbon. If it inherently makes you feel good, I think you should go with it and have a great time, with the idea that refreshment is the #1 thing to make sure that you're getting through a meal with conviviality while also respecting what's on the plate.
We'll start with this beef carpaccio. So we've got thinly sliced beef fillet, we've got marjoram, oregano, and some of this rendered bone marrow in the dressing, and some mache on top.
I like beer and carpaccio. I see carpaccio as a kind of worker's dish in some respects. It's typically quite simple. This is Heaps Normal's Another Lager, so it's a non-alcoholic drink. I think having a sort of backdrop of non-alcoholic beverages in your arsenal of drink matching is really important. But why I like this match is because lager typically is lightly bitter, or can be extremely bitter at times, but dry and super refreshing. The second one, and this is quite left of center, is Manzanilla Sherry. Yeah, and Equipo Novassos, to me, absolutely ballistic in terms of quality of sherry. I like that these sherries, particularly Manzanilla or Fino, are dry styles. And to me that, again, which is a really important thing, is it resets the palate.
Try and get a little bit of the marrow.
It's that light bitterness, and I think it's just so cleansing. You know, a big palate reset, ready for you to have the next mouthful, and it takes away some of the oil, which makes, you know, additional interest in terms of texture. Bone marrow's richness and sweetness, and then that bitterness. It's a really amazing combo.
Yeah. Awesome.
Sherry. I might get another mouthful of this.
Cheers?
We should. Cheers. Thank you, Leila. You can sort of have it as a smaller pour, so it's just, as you would say, a morsel, but of wine, of a lovely salty wine. Do we see success?
Oh, absolutely. I'm actually like really surprised with how much I like the Heaps Normal with this. But also the sherry is like a lot more delicate than having the lager. I feel like if I was having lunch, I'd want a can of that and the carpaccio to myself. But if I was like maybe having dinner, I'd want to start with a glass of that and a carpaccio. Yeah,
there's a nice kindred nature between each glass and that dish that I think works really well.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to the marrow. Talk us through the dish.
Roast bone marrow, just olive oil, salt, and then like a parsley gremolata. So we've got parsley in there, some marjoram, and oregano, salt, lemon, and just some toast.
I thought I'd match it with This is a white wine. It's a wine that's seen some skin fermentation during the fermentation process, which means that the white grapes are brought into the winery, the skins are left to macerate with the juice. They only sit there for about 8 days or so, but it builds this drying texture, tannin, like you'd find in red wines, but in a white wine. And the variety is Trebbiano. Into it? So immediately I'm getting this really lovely wash of saline, minerally characters. A little bit of sort of lemony zestiness that sort of refreshes the palate as well. And sometimes when I talk about the final condiment being in the glass, I think about what would I squeeze on top of this, and I might squeeze some lemon and put some salt on top just to refresh the dish when you're eating it, and that's exactly what you've got there in that glass, I reckon.
Yeah, that's perfect.
These non-drinks, as I like to call them, are kind of category defying. They don't sit in the world of wine, but they sit in for the wine experience. So for this, it's lightly sparkling, but red, and produced predominantly from stewed cherry and coffee.
Oh, wow.
But it has other exotic spices in there, some garam masala, pink peppercorn, and a base of verjus with quite a bit of salt. Lots of cherry, lots of that garam masala saltiness.
Yeah, and they're both doing really different things. I like that this one is quite lemony and gives it a little bit more brightness, but this is like kind of matching in like a deeper way, and it feels like something a lot more savory.
Where have we landed up with Leila on this last one?
So we've got sort of an ossobuco style cut of beef shin. When you think about the animal, the shin is a muscle that's used a lot. So it's something that wants to be cooked for a really long time. You come back and you've got this, you know, like luxurious bone that's got marrow inside, and then you've got this meat that's falling apart. And it's on a bed of whole braised broad beans, lots of cumin, coriander, and fresh dill.
Now in terms of drinks matching, I've come back to beer, but I've come back to a dark lager. I like the idea that there's a little bit of hoppy bitterness that comes with the lagering style, but at the same time there is roasted malt and quite richer, unctuous texture and flavour profiles. Alrighty, a little bit of herb as well. Dark lager, little pinky out. Again, it's trying to be not overpowering the dish, and I think one of the things that a lot of people get wrong when they're slow cooking and braising and stewing is they reach straight away for the old, full-flavoured, big red wine. When you put those two things together, you get this clash in the palate of just richness on richness. And what you need is, I think, a little bit of levity and freshness, just to be able to keep you going on the dish, making sure you can put as much of it into you as possible.
Yeah, I'm really surprised again with the beer combo, because I never think to reach for that, but that's really nice.
And then I love chilling my reds. Do whatever you feel is good. Don't listen to those that will tell you you're doing it wrong. So today, I thought I'd get something a bit more classic, particularly for a slow cooked cut like this, and I got Shiraz. But on the label, it says Syrah. Typical French naming for Shiraz is Syrah, and Australia is one of the few places on earth that actually uses the name Shiraz for these grapes. And Syrah for me conjures up perfumed, medium-bodied, spicy, herbal styles, and that's exactly what I wanted. Was, again, thinking about final condiment in the glass, a new array of herbs, peppery spice, high refreshment factor, and kind of a leaner style of red wine, particularly when it's cold, that'll just cut straight through that, and each mouthful is just ready to go once you've had a sip. So should we try?
Yes.
Great. I love that it's cool. First and foremost, the warmth and richness there, the coolness, it's a kind of counterbalance that I find really appealing when I'm thinking about these ways of putting things together in a dining experience. But it also, again, that sort of herbal character that's through it works as a sort of additional spree of herbs across the dish as well. So the lesson in the drinks is seek out dark lagers or lagers that have a bit more character and body. That's all you have to ask for if you're seeking these things. And Syrah as opposed to Shiraz. I mean, some Shiraz of course is lighter weight and fresh and peppery, but Syrah will kind of steer you into a better direction if you're thinking about these braises and slow cooks, and something red in your glass, which I think a lot of people really do enjoy, but making sure there's a bit of time in the fridge or those ice cubes.
I don't think there's any wrong answer. It's like, as long as you've got a happy belly.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you've helped me feel so good and a happy belly overall.